Welcome to Marketing Brew Weekly, the show where we chat about everything that's, surprising and delighting the marketing world this week. I'm Jenny Mywin, reporter.
I'm Kelsey Sutton, editor.
And I'm Katie Hicks, senior reporter.
Today, we are digging into the Emmys and advertisers at award shows, the power of Gen Alpha, and the marketing moment that is choosing Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah. Ready? Let's do it!
All right, the TikTok ban. Remember her?
Remember. You guys.
That dark day in January.
It was a truly dark day. I was manually downloading every TikTok I've ever saved, and I was like, I need them to be on my hard drive forever.
People were literally downloading Chinese apps like Red Note and learning Mandarin because they were like, I can't live a day without my TikTok.
Everyone's brain is completely broken.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that ban ended as quickly as it began. It was just one day. And since then, President Trump has issued a series of delays on the TikTok ban, the ban or divest law, rather, through executive orders. But now it seems like there may be a resolution in sight. A framework of a deal, that is a direct quote, was reached with Chinese officials as of Monday. So that's as much as we know right now at the time that we're recording, but it looks like there may be a deal in sight.
There may be a buyer. This, I think, is huge news for social marketers who I think were sort of like staying the course. They were like, well, TikTok's here for now, so we're going to use it for now. And think of all the small businesses who operate on TikTok Shop and use that as a platform. So having it stick around is obviously going to be very huge for the creator economy.
Yeah, not to mention, the creators, the influencers that obviously need TikTok. I feel like the TikTok algorithm changed so much of how influencer marketing works. So everyone was kind of waiting with bated breath to see if this deal was going to go through. Hilarious that we're calling it a framework of a deal. It's giving, what was it? What did he say during the debates? The
concepts of a plan.
Concepts of a plan, frameworks of a deal. So we have...
It's what you say to your editor when you have not written your story at all.
Yeah, I have an outline, I swear. It's coming.
The thing that I'm interested to see, because I know in August, they were talking about a US-only TikTok. It was called M2 among TikTok employees internally. We don't know what the terms of this deal are, because again, framework of a deal. But if it is a US-only app, what will that look like? Will creators be able to have the reach that they once had? Will brands be able to use TikTok the same way they were using it before? These are kind of the questions people are raising as we learn more about what this deal actually looks like.
Right. And it's kind of thorny, right? Because it's the Chinese government has to sign off on the deal. So cooperating with the Chinese government is a whole thing that could change how people function on the app, how advertisers function on the app. So there's a lot still to be worked out with this framework.
Well, apparently Trump's meeting with the Chinese president on Friday, so we should know more by then. But again, this has been an ongoing thing. Who knows if there'll be another delay, but the original next ban date was supposed to be this Wednesday, and it looks like that's probably not going to happen. So.
Well, one brand that will give you more than just a framework of a deal happens to be the sponsor of today's episode, Digicom.
Digicom is a digital marketing agency that works with e-commerce brands like MindBody Green, Ever Eaten, and David's Toothpaste. They use scientific creative testing and multi-channel executions to give you 10x level breakthroughs. And they use ad platforms like Meta, Google, TikTok, Outbrain, and Taboola.
And something I think is really interesting is that Digicom does kind of plug in as a brand's head of growth. So they'll handle things like budgeting and planning. They can do creative production for paid ads using your assets, and they can even do media buying. But first, they'll conduct an audit to map the metrics that really matter for a brand, whether that's hook rate, watch time, click-through rate, conversion, revenue, anything like that.
Well, for Marketing Brew listeners, that's you. Digicom is offering a free, no BS paid media audit. So that means they'll spend 10 hours diving into Meta and Google. They'll do some creative testing for you, and they'll look for ways to optimize your conversion rate, all with a 90-day action plan.
To get your brand's free paid media audit, go to digicom.io/brew. And again, that's digicom.io/brew.
Did either of you watch the Emmys? I feel like it's all I've been thinking about since it aired on Sunday night.
Big night for the Pit. We love the Pit.
Huge night for the Pit. We do. I feel like all three of us are big Pit girls, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. Huge night. I think the thing that I love about the Emmys is that it's kind of a huge marketing moment for the streaming brands that are part of it, or the networks, right?
Of course.
Obviously, the Pit wins and everybody's like, oh my God, do I have HBO Max? Where's my login? If they haven't already watched it, you could say the same thing with all of the winners, Apple TV Plus, with Severance, a couple supporting actor and actress awards there. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit in the context of awards shows, advertising, and how we sort of see these awards shows really stand out. I think something that's so interesting is we talk about live TV all the time, and that has been the bread and butter for so many advertisers for so long. Big audiences, engaged audiences because it's live. And in an era of so much streaming, so many things you can watch, live TV there are fewer and fewer opportunities to really cut through the noise. Live sports is obviously one of them. And then awards shows are sort of the other one. And they're kind of having a comeback a little bit. The Emmys, the ratings were out and they're up considerably from the last few years. And that is a real turnaround because I think there was a moment in time when we thought, ooh, the awards shows might be gone for. What did you guys think about the brand integrations that we saw Sunday night? It was pretty subdued.
Yeah, I feel like I was kind of surprised, kind of not surprised to not really notice like brand integrations or like very obvious branded moments throughout the Emmys production. I do feel like the Emmys, the Oscars, maybe even like the SAGs, like the quote unquote like more prestigious award shows, like tend to not make their branded moments like super obvious. Like I feel like, I know we have a couple other award shows we're going to talk about in a second, like the VMAs, that like the more like casual award shows like can turn their branded moments into a little joke, into like a moment that like people kind of want to like pay attention to. But something about the prestige of something like an Emmys, I think that would stick out in a bad way. So I think it's a good thing that I personally didn't notice a lot of brand integrations, but I know they obviously had really big sponsors along the way. So that seems like kind of the playbook for these types of award shows in particular.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it was very traditional advertising methods. I noticed a lot of Netflix ads in between the segments, which makes sense. They're like, hey, if you like TV, you'll probably like our new show coming out. So I feel like, yeah, nothing too noticeable during the show, but definitely in between.
I do think there's a moment on the runways or in the outfits, etc. And that's one of the ways that I think fashion brands in particular or apparel brands can kind of stand out. It's a little bit more, if you know, you have to look for it. But if you're interested in what somebody is wearing, you could look it up, you could find out.
The red carpet interviewers, I feel like, always make a big
Who are
point
you wearing
to ask.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes,
like contractually
exactly.
obligated almost. But I feel like there are more interesting ways that fashion brands can show up too.
Yeah, so Noah Wiley, you mentioned the pit earlier, he wore a suit that was made from Scrubs materials provided by Figs, which is a Scrubs brand. And I thought that was such a fun way of really, Noah Wiley is such an advocate for healthcare workers, probably because he is has played one on television so successfully. But I thought that was a really fun kind of understated way of making that happen.
Yeah, I imagine he was probably asked about it on the red carpet. I didn't see that particular interview, but it's kind of fun that if you just watched the Emmy show itself, there was no big moment about Figs or anything like that, but then I went on social media afterwards and I was like, oh, what a fun way, creative way that this brand chose to show up in this cultural moment. And it feels like an almost insidery thing. I was I'm such a fan of Noah Wiley in the show, and now I know that this brand in particular made a point out of supporting the show and this actor and being in it in a way that makes sense for the brand, which just feels it feels more special than being we are Figs and we are on the red carpet and we are on Noah Wiley. I think it's fun.
Yeah, they posted about it. I think they said custom made for Noah Wiley in the shirt too.
Cool.
It was just all very sweet. It felt very intentional, and I think that's kind of the ideal organic placement is, yeah, it makes sense. He's playing a doctor. Get a Scrubs brand to help dress you for the event. Why
and
not?
I know some healthcare workers in my life, and they love the pit. They want to see a degloved foot.
Oh my God. That is not something I ever want to see personally, but love that for them.
You mentioned the VMAs a little earlier, Jenna, and I feel like that's a little bit of a contrast from what we saw. And of course, the vibes are different, and I think that's worth noting. But this year, we talked about high viewership of the Emmys. The Emmys had 6.9 million viewers, which is up 54%, which is pretty incredible. The VMAs had 5.5 million viewers, so a little smaller than the Emmys, but that was up also very considerably. It was their highest viewership since 2019. And they had, during that broadcast, more than 11 minutes of on-screen brand integrations, according to Adweek. That's pretty That's a lot. That's a lot. We actually pulled one of them, which is some branded content with Meg Stalter, who's in Hacks on HBO Max and also on Too Much on Netflix. She worked with Dunkin' on a branded ad, and it's all very irreverent and silly. But we have a little bit of a clip of that to share.
Duncan, oh my God, you almost pushed me. Duncan.
Oh, no, my
Duncan?
name's Frank, actually.
Oh, I don't care, loser. Where's the closest Duncan? Where's the closest Duncan?
So, yeah, you're gonna go out the door and...
Oh, out the door. Okay, great. Thanks for the directions.
Did you want...
Okay, so we didn't play the whole thing, but I think one of the things that I really think we're seeing in a lot of ads like this is that, like, that is so, I don't know if that was scripted. It feels very off the cuff, very unserious. And I think that the most successful kind of partnerships in these spaces is when a brand is not taking themselves too seriously and is kind of allowing the person that they're working with to kind of take the lead and make it actually funny, because we all have seen that overworked decision by committee advertisement that the script is so boring and it's
legal. It's gotten
it's
all
sort
the
of like you can
approvals.
see the shadow of a joke that existed at one point,
The
and
idea,
it's been
the concept, the framework of a joke.
and it's all these sort of edges have been sanded off, and then you're just like, oh my God, this is terrible. So but I think that that's such an interesting way of doing it, is finding these more intentional ways to work with somebody, but kind of let them take the lead.
Yeah, I feel like with this one in particular, because I think it aired during the VMAs, and like the little bit that we saw, it was like pre-taped, but then there was like a live element where they like brought it into the show. So like the people in the room are seeing this ad, and you at home are also seeing this ad, and it's kind of like merging the like branded typical ad space with like the show space. Like you can't be too serious as an advertiser if you're gonna like literally make the ad part of the show. Like no
Right.
one's signing up to watch that.
If you're gonna interrupt the broadcast, you gotta make it funny. I feel like we saw this too with the Las Culturistas Awards this summer too, which is on Peacock. I feel like they did a really good job of integrating their brands into like sponsoring different awards that they were giving out and making it not about the product, but about like just a general joke that the brand was then integrated into.
I think Duncan was at the Las Culturistas awards as well.
They're everywhere.
And I also love this was such a cultural moment from the Las Culturistas Awards, which Jenna-Mai, I know you love, which is when Ben Platt sang Diet Pepsi,
Really important to me.
originally by Addison Rae on stage. Huge breakout moment for Diet Pepsi, which I don't think was a sponsor or involved.
No, definitely not. I mean,
Should
the
have
song, it should have been. Yeah, missed opportunity for them. I feel like the song has been like kind of big throughout the summer, but like it had such a funny moment through the Ben Platt cover, and then it had like such a big moment online afterwards, and which like kind of just like elevated the whole Las Culturistas Awards show like to a big online moment that was like really great for marketers. I feel like we kind of talked at the time, just the three of us, about how it felt like Pepsi should have come on board as a sponsor, but like maybe they didn't know this was coming. That was going to be like such a big part of the show. Our girl Meg Stalter, though, also had a moment at this award show where she showed up wearing what felt like a DIY homemade Diet Coke outfit, which you can see on the screen here.
I think it's made out of Diet Coke boxes.
Yes, totally. And again,
Not breathable, but honestly, she looks great.
right. She looks great. We love a crafty queen. But we, again, don't know if Diet Coke is actually a sponsor, but it feels like such a fun play on like the content of the show. And it kind of like highlights like another way that brands can show up at these award shows is like totally organic, right? Like Diet Coke has had such like a cultural moment for a while now. I feel like Diet Coke girls are a thing in the culture, and that's what Meg Stalter was playing on. And Coke might not have actually had to like strike an official deal, but they had a presence at this award show, which drew a lot of eyeballs to their brand.
This is a little bit of a diversion, but I feel like this kind of underscores the importance of being able to be really good at social listening, like seeing the Megan Stalter thing and being able to actually react, you know, knowing that those organic moments, again, this is the moment where lots and lots of people are engaged. So if there is a brand moment or some way that a brand can get involved in the cultural conversation, you have to be able to move really with a lot of agility. You have to move really fast. Otherwise, the moment's gone.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of shows that, like, I feel like an award show like Las Culturistas, maybe like the VMAs, like, we need a little bit of fun, new energy in the award show space. Something about, like, old award show sensibility, but a new type of opportunity that's showing up with these types of award shows. And I wonder if something like the Emmys would ever like take a page out of that book, but they feel pretty different to me at this stage. Okay, have you guys heard of a creator named Salish Matter?
I just learned about her.
Yeah, you just taught me about Salish Matter. Can you give us a quick rundown for the listeners who might not know?
Quick primer for the audience. She is a Gen Alpha content creator who actually recently launched a skincare brand called Sincerely Yours. And she had a big launch event at the American Dream Mall just across the border here in New Jersey that drew so many people. It was a bigger crowd than Mr. Beast or Hailey Bieber's brands have ever drawn in the same venue. She rose to fame on YouTube. She kind of was like, she's the daughter of Jordan Matter, who is also a famous photographer and YouTuber himself. So she is like been around on the internet, but like has started her own presence like more recently. And just seeing the amount of people that showed up, I think the number was about 87,000 people, was absolutely insane.
I saw videos of moms being like, I brought my daughter here. We got in line at 4 a.m. to meet Salish. I don't even know who she is, but here we are. And I was shocked. I was like, what do you mean people are waiting in a mall parking lot at 4 a.m.?
Right, and you weren't the only person who was shocked because Jordan Matter spoke to Ad Age, and he said that they were expecting about 1,000 people to show up. They like sent out an Eventbrite link just to like see if people would RSVP, and a number of people RSVP'd, but he talked about how like even like when you get RSVPs to like free events like this, like you expect a fraction of those RSVPs to show up, and expecting 1,000 people and getting 87,000 people, literally more than like an NFL stadium could hold, is just crazy.
This is the more traffic that any American mall has seen in
Literally.
like 20 years.
That's what one of my
Salish is keeping malls alive.
Yes, I was like, who goes to mall events anymore? Apparently, tweens do, which is really just speaking to the power, I feel like, of Gen Alpha and how much influencing power they have, not in the traditional sense online, but they are the ones telling their parents to drive them to the American Dream Mall and show up because they want to meet their favorite creators and they want to support these brands that are coming out. So it's really crazy to see like this like youngest subset of consumers really show what they're worth.
And there's this whole new crop of young Gen Alpha creators who have been building followings. Again, you know, Salish has been around in the background of her dad's videos for a long time. She has 1.3 million followers on YouTube and 4.5 million followers on Instagram. Like that's really nothing to you know, shake a stick at. I don't know what, but you know, I think that's just it's so crazy because these people, these Gen Alpha kids who went to this event, they have grown up with her. Their commitment to her and brands that she either creates or endorses goes so deep. Mm-hmm. And Gen Alpha is really such an online, you know, even more than Gen Z. They grew up with her, and they're also kind of at a prime moment to convince their parents to spend their parents' money on the things that they want.
I feel like there's this like pervasive belief that like Gen Alpha like primarily exists online. Like they are on TikTok, they're addicted to their iPads, like they only have this kind of like cultural power online. But the fact that so many people showed up in person, I actually think, quick correction, 3 million people is her YouTube following. Like 3 million people on YouTube, 4.5 million on Instagram. That is just so many people that actually showed up, and it's not just an online thing.
I think what's interesting about all of this, and I wrote about Gen Alpha marketing like months back, but really there's no tween market anymore. Like if you look back 20 years ago, we had like our teen magazines, like a lot of publications had a teen version of what they were selling. There were a lot more like tween specific stores. There was this market that was designated for like the age that Gen Alpha is now, and it doesn't really exist anymore. And a lot of these young girls are looking at influencers now instead. I mean, I've seen people even online say like, who's the big Disney Channel girl right now? There really isn't one. I mean, a lot of the spaces that we used to think of as being very, you know, influential to young kids are kind of just online now.
I think something that's so interesting is kids who are on social media platforms are part of the same algorithm. So they're going to see the same, you know, the algorithm is sort of a mysterious black box, but they're just going to be fed the same stuff as adults. And I think that's something that somebody that you spoke to for your Gen Alpha marketing story told you, but it's just such an interesting thing. I think something that's particularly interesting for brands in this space is just the growth of skincare brands among the Gen Alpha audience. There was a huge conversation around Drunk Elephant becoming really attractive among Gen Alpha. And what does that mean for a brand? How does a brand navigate that? Do they lean in? Do they lean out? You know, because these, again, tweens are grabbing something that is maybe more adult, feels a little bit more grown up, which is a tale as old as time. Kids have done this forever.
Yeah, and it's tough because Drunk Elephant, I read, kind of lost some of their older base as a result of this because people started thinking of them as a tween brand. So with a brand, like when a brand faces that, what do? Do you pivot? Do you start, targeting tweens? They had to put out a few statements being like, certain products of ours are safe to use if you're young, but some of them we recommend waiting until you're a bit older. And I feel like this was just a situation they were thrust into. Same with Sephora. I feel like Sephora all of a sudden was like overrun with kids, and they were like, we don't know if we should take a stance on this or if we should just let kids, keep running around and shopping at our stores. It's a tough position for some of these brands to face.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that like Drunk Elephant felt the need to do that because I feel like the surge that happened with 10 to 15-year-olds being really interested in Drunk Elephant happened. And my understanding is that even though they were like attracted to Drunk Elephant as a brand, I think at one point they were like, oh, it isn't actually made for people in our age demographic, which is a direct thing that I believe Salish and Jordan Matter, who is her father and also co-founder on the skincare brand, was like trying to directly address. Like there isn't a fun, like buzzy skincare brand that's actually made for kids. So that's what this brand is trying to like fill the hole in for.
But do kids need skincare?
That is the question. Yeah, I mean, like everyone could use a good moisturizer, right? So maybe it's about putting a good moisturizer in some really fun packaging and connecting it to the people that they care about, which clearly they care about Salish Matter.
Maybe it's a little better than rubbing that apricot scrub into the depths of your skin 4 times a day
Peeling
as a
layers
12-year-old,
off.
which is what I did, and I can't recommend it to anybody.
Right. Well, Katie, I think you also talked to Dove, who is a brand that's actually like countering the narrative that young kids need skincare. They had a campaign from last spring that asked, is it even possible to look 10 years younger at 10? So I feel like there is this debate around the skincare brand community of like whether they should even be targeting kids that are so young with products that are not made for them.
Yeah, I mean, it raises the question, if there's a gap in the market, does it necessarily need to be filled?
Right.
Or is it okay that kids are just, rubbing their face with St. Ives?
Right, totally. Well, we might not be teens anymore, but that doesn't mean that we can't still watch teen shows. You guys, Katie and I have been talking about this nonstop. The Summer I Turned Pretty took over everyone's TVs this summer, I feel like. How are we feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even if you're not tuning into the show, you've seen content related to Belly, Jeremiah, and Conrad's love triangle. It feels to me like a callback to like the days of like the Twilight love triangle or the Hunger Games. And honestly, the books are from that era, so that makes sense. But this show it's in its final season, and it is drawing the attention of a lot of viewers. 25 million tuned into the series premiere, or the season premiere rather, and the series finale is this Wednesday. So I wouldn't be surprised if that number was just as high, if not higher.
And the brands obviously are getting involved. We're seeing sports brands, the MLB, NFL are all involved in this sort of thing. It's so our senior reporter, Christina Monlos, talked to some of the marketers about jumping in on this. And one thing that I thought was so interesting, it was the MLB's VP of Social Media and Innovation said that this is really mirrors sports fandom, because the show, if you don't know, now you will know, is that there is sort of this love triangle with this Belly is the main character, and then there are 2 brothers who she is sort of choosing between. And so this big sort of social moment is declaring what team you're on. Are you on Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah? And of course, we will all find out later today when the season and show finale airs. But I just thought that's such an interesting thing, because it does not sound like a show that would attract sports brands, sports fans inherently. There's not a lot of sports content in the show, but it's sort of the format itself makes it very attractive to a certain type of marketer. And of course, we also know that any kind of brand is looking at Gen Z, millennials, and women have a ton of spending power. So, I don't know the breakdown of The Summer I Turned Pretty. It was a teen book series that was marketed toward women when it came out. And of course, so there's some of that DNA in the show. But of course, if you like it, you like it. And there's no, there's no requirement for who gets to watch the show.
It kind of reminds me of how the NFL was using like Taylor Swift content to court women. It feels like with sports teams seeing this opportunity and seeing the opportunity to be like, hey, choose a team. We're Team Conrad or we're Team Jeremiah. They can further engage like women who maybe were on the verge of watching sports or are watching sports but don't feel like they're being seen. It also could just be that the social media managers are watching the show and they're all having a fun time with it.
The girlies are fans out there.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's so easy to do it too, because of the sports brands that I've seen getting in on this, it's oftentimes they're asking their players, like, are you Team Jeremiah or Team Conrad? And even if they don't know what you're asking, they can just pick one. It's a low stakes thing to just say. Or sometimes it's like really delightful when like a big NFL player is like, oh my God, I am actually so invested in the show and I am Team Conrad. Here are all my reasons and thoughts for why.
I saw some, apparently in the show, it's not entirely evident, but in the show Conrad plays football and I've seen people say like, he's kind of like Joe Burrow, like because Joe Burrow has a nerdier side that he's shown in certain videos where he's talking about like dinosaurs and stuff. And his team kind of started posting content being like, if you're Team Conrad, like here he is showing Joe Burrow. So there is natural overlap, kind of just, again, the importance of social listening. You got to see what people are saying. And if it ties to your brand, jump on it.
And there were two brands that were also in the show itself, Swedish Fish and Sour Patch Kids, both owned by Mondelez Brands, but they sort of were the stand-in for each brother. I think that was at the end of season 2. And I thought this really is the power of a brand integration, because what a natural way to tee that up and then say, okay, like, encourage people to buy the candy affiliated with each brother. And Christina spoke to Mondelez Brands and the engagement for social content about the third season from Swedish Fish was up 514% from season 2. So clearly people are really engaging with that sort of content. And on Sour Patch Kids netted 12 million impressions so far this year just for its social content related to the show. So again, really, I think indicating the power of, right, you've got the big screen, it's on the TV screen, and then you just pivot right off onto the social feeds and keep that conversation going and keep the brand very front and center.
I'd be curious to hear how Coach is doing too, because they've been very integrated into the season. Like Belly's always carrying around a Coach purse, and then in the ad breaks, it's always a Coach ad featuring Lola Tung, who plays Belly in the show. So I feel like there are definitely some brands who caught on to the popularity of the show and said, we are going to make it very in your face that we are part of the show.
Yeah, something I think is interesting about that is Coach has really been going after Gen Z. And I think one of the things that's interesting about this show, we've talked about this, is there are obviously Gen Z fans of this show, but there are also people who are much older. I don't want to say much older, but
Millennial women.
Yeah, right. Millennial women who are also really embracing this show. And I think, again, that just indicates this sort of, there's not a really clear delineation between these generations. We use them as kind of a stand-in, but, millennial women might be like, wow, that Coach bag looks really nice. I know what I'm going to ask for my birthday.
Yeah, totally. I feel like it's targeting Gen Z, but millennials obviously can see a bag from Coach and be like, oh, that's actually cute for me too. It blurs the line a little bit there, which the show definitely takes advantage of in terms of like who it's targeting for the show, and then the brand partners that they're bringing in can kind of take advantage of that blurry line as well. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you guys want to tell us if you're Team Jeremiah or Team Conrad, send us an email at mkbw@morningbrew.com, which you can also find in the show notes. We cannot wait to hear from you, and make sure you join us again next week.